which is kind of the north. Sorry, little pop-up on the screen, get rid of that. So you can see how we can start to see the demographics that are struggling the most to be active. What we've then got is a couple of slides where we thought it'd be really interesting just to share this, because we've got colleagues in the room today, mainly from schools, but also some that are community-based that are engaging with schools. And this breaks it down. I talked about schools having 30 minutes in school and 30 minutes out of school every day to be classed as active. You can see here the difference. This is the low family affluence, where I talked about one of the challenging groups that are struggling to be active enough. There is a discrepancy on in school, so at school activity of completing 30 minutes, as well as out of school. So again, you know, it's something for us to think about, is why are we seeing those differences from low family affluence young people not getting their 30 minutes within schools? And again, that's something we'd love to work with you on, to either understand more about that or to see what we can put in place to help raise those and increase those activity levels. So that's family affluence. And then I've got a very similar one that looks at the gender, which, if you remember from the other slide, was the main two things that I identified. So again, if you look at school, we are finding at year 5 and 6 and at year 9 and 11, girls are a lot less active than boys at those two particular pinch points. What you see out of school is similar nationally. What you see in school sometimes fluctuates depending on the county. So again, it's something just to understand in there. So just to put that into perspective, if you were a boy, you are 1.3 times more likely to be physically active. If you're from a high family affluence family, you are 1.9 times more likely to be active. So it kind of shows you that actually it's family affluence that's really impacting on physical activity. But if you're from a low FAS and you're female, you've got that dual thing of being facing real challenges. And then we just wanted to lastly cover physical literacy, because I know some of you are working with that and obviously with early years. And this slide here just really articulates that when we are providing opportunities for young people, it's really about how strongly they agree with a statement. So for example, I'll just take enjoyment and then you can kind of see the rest from there. Someone has to strongly agree with the statement that they enjoy sport and physical activity for them to be more likely to be physically active. If they answer agree or any other answer, then you can see there the stats show that they are much less likely to be physically active. So that's what that slide is in there. It's kind of the prevalence of or how strongly they agree with a statement. This one is just for your information more, so it's in the presentation when it comes out to you. But these are the activities that generally young people are engaging with within Lincolnshire. A couple of really good pieces of information in here is around active travel is about the same as national. However, look at the cycling. We're actually superseding the national average for cycling in Lincolnshire. And again, we're trying to understand that and the work that's happening within there to keep that going. But then we were a little bit behind on the walking element within there. So just something to think about. So to sum it up, there's 3 areas that have been identified. And I've skimmed over one, which I'll cover now. So low family affluence, so low SEG areas, higher IMD areas. They're areas we want to focus on our work, and One Network are here to support schools that are maybe sat in some of those areas where they're facing this challenge. Girls, we want to see about programs or how we can support girls programs for them to have that affinity to sport and physical activity. But also when we talk about BAME, there was a slide within there around kind of BAME communities that I skimmed over. And that's because the data is really kind of, there's not as many responses or stats to really get that rich data to be able to inform us properly. But what we have done is we've gone on school roll data and we've gone on kind of national trends, and we've picked out within Lincolnshire that the Asian population are more inactive than any other BAME community, and also that anyone that classes themselves as other ethnic background are also less likely to be active, whereas white, other and white seem to equal off within Lincolnshire in terms of participation rates. So again, if we're doing some work and you've got high levels of these particular populations within your schools, within your communities, that's something we'd love to kind of hear more about and link up with you. So that was a really quick whistle-stop tour. I was strictly given sort of like 10 minutes to get through it. So it was a whistle-stop tour of the highlight slides. What there is in here is a link to the full presentation that was actually done by Press Red, who we commissioned the Insight work with. They ran a workshop, a 45-minute workshop. So you could go on there and see the full breadth of all of the data and all of the slides. And also within that presentation, we go through a mapping tool. It's an online mapping tool to look at this insight, but also to look at where are those young people within Lincolnshire, what organisations are working with them, what are schools engaging with. So please, again, do use that link and have a look, and then come back to us if you'd like to explore that further with us. And I can't not cover it, so apologies for this around mentioning that dreaded word of COVID, but I do need to mention this. I don't want to go into too much because you've got some really good intelligence coming up from the next presenter, but there's some highlights there. And I suppose the one thing I want to pick out is the people most affected by COVID are the identified groups that are already struggling to be active in Lincolnshire. So we've got that double whammy of they're already struggling, and then through the pandemic, actually there's even more of a challenge. And the two stats down there, 18% and 14%. If you imagine we were at that 50% active children, actually nationally they're seeing a trend where it's only 18% in the first lockdown, only 14% being active in the third lockdown. So it'll be really interesting what that looks like in Lincolnshire. So I just wanted to mention that as the last thing, but not to cover anything else about Lincolnshire, because I'm going to hand over to Vincent Britton now from Inspire Plus, who has been working very hard. And I won't steal your thunder, Vincent, so I'll let you introduce SAM and what that means and what that stands for. So over to you, Vincent. Thank you.
Thanks, Naz. Appreciate the introduction. So yeah, just a quick introduction. I'm Vincent Britton. I'm CEO and founder of a charity called Inspire Plus, which is based in Grantham. My charity predominantly serves southwest of Lincolnshire with our school membership offer, and we also have a training arm where we do PE and school sport apprenticeships, and that's across the East Midlands. Today, I'm actually here to talk to you. I'm a one network member. I'm proud to be so. And today I'm just going to talk to you a bit about Schools Active Movement, a little bit around the local intelligence that's created this year. But then also for those that are in primary schools, I've got some really exciting news to tell you about funding for next year if you've not already heard. Can we move on, Naz? Okay, so Schools Active Movement is an organisation that works with not-for-profit organisations across the country working in the PE and sport world. We have currently 200 members, of which represent and work with 12,500 schools and work then with 3.25 million children. This is a countrywide movement, and it was set up by myself and Mo Farah's PE teacher, Alan Watkinson, at the beginning of this year. We felt that our organisations needed a little bit more support around the development above and beyond those that are school game organisers, around the development of PE and sport and school sport, and this movement really has taken off and has really sort of become quite a big movement. After you, Naz. So in terms of what Schools Active Movement is trying to do, our mission is to ensure that children are happier, healthier and more active. And our strategy is one of fit. We are asking government, along with other partners, for funding. And that's not Schools Active Movement asking for funding, but on behalf of our partners and our members for funding, an infrastructure to deliver this and time. Those of you that are primary schools will realise since 2019 we've had PE and school sport premium funded on one-year cycles, and whilst no one can knock government for providing £320 million a year for PE and school sport development within primary schools, I think most schools will be tired now that there seems to be a one-year cycle of that funding. And schools tend to find out very late into term 6. Last year, I think it was the penultimate weekend of the school term. And for some parts of the country, like Leicestershire, schools had already gone for their summer break, which is very difficult for head teachers and PE leads to plan effectively for the following year. And in terms of what we do for our members, our 200 members, we connect, advocate and share. Next please. Now, in terms of what we've done this year, we decided that we wanted to do a national survey to demonstrate or to understand better some indicators that have come out of the lockdown. So we wanted to know, first of all, what children's state of play was for them returning after lockdown 3. We wanted to know then how we could then best support schools, but then also we wanted some data that we could go to government and demonstrate that, you know, things have deteriorated since lockdowns. No fault of schools, I have to say, but the fact that a lot of children have been cooped up inside in lockdowns, that obviously would have had, or potentially could have had, an impact. Now, over 2,500 schools across the country participated in this survey. And 178 schools alone in Lincolnshire did. And these are this is the Lincolnshire data. So just to probably pull off a few of the statistics, 83% of schools in Lincolnshire believe their children returning back from lockdown 3, their children's physical fitness levels are worse or a lot worse than prior to it. Pupils' resilience, so that's getting through the school day, has deteriorated, and in Lincolnshire, schools believe that's 65% worse or a lot worse. Pupils' general well-being, 60% worse or a lot worse. And the one figure that strikes me every time I read these figures is excessive body weight. 68% of school teachers in Lincolnshire that participated in this survey believe children have come back with excess body weight. So I believe, and we will, as a movement, we'll be looking to revisit this survey probably in term 1 now. We do believe schools are playing a tremendous role in improving these figures, and certainly with support from our members as well. We know these figures probably won't be as bad as they are. That's in terms of this, what's demonstrated here in front of you. However, it is pretty shocking. I have to think we all agree that in terms of what the outcome of the survey came up with. We have, if you don't mind going to the next slide, we have used that survey. Well, sorry, national press have cottoned on to the survey when we did this, and this is the Telegraph that shared an insight into our research, and a couple of other national media outlets did. And when I said to you on our third point of us doing it, we wanted to demonstrate to government the state of play, we did actually then start using these figures to demonstrate to government that funding for next year needed to be delivered. And as we go to the next slide, please. Only recently, well, those of you that are primary schools and are recipients of the primary PE and sport premium are aware that funding hasn't been secured, or wasn't until perhaps today secured. And you know, this is something that the figures that we gathered, we were able to utilise and gain some sort of some media interest. We also had the school sport and activity sector join in with Youth Sport Trust to raise the awareness of the £320 million and how important this was. And in this particular article, the School Active Movement National Survey was actually quoted. Naz, next slide. So I guess those of you that have been in classes all day that haven't looked at their telephones and perhaps haven't looked at social media may or may not be aware that today, and I think Department of Education have timed it correctly and rightly for this webinar. They at 10:30 this morning released that the PE and School Sport Premium has been continued into the 21-22 academic year. So that's £320 million, which is For every primary school that on this webinar, that's £16,000 plus £10 per pupil. So the same as you were getting this academic year has been confirmed for next academic year. One thing that's also changed is up until 10:30 this morning, DfE were making it quite clear that any underspend that you had from last year and this year, you had to spend it by the end of this academic year. Well, as of 10:30 this morning, as well as announcing the information that the funding will be there for next academic year, they are also they have confirmed that funding, any underspend that you do have currently, can be spent into next academic year and it has to be spent by July 2022. So for those primary schools that were perhaps worried about spending their funding, that I guess is some comfort for you. On the release for Department of Education, they actually did feature a really nice video. And Naz, if you don't mind showing the video, I thought it'd be nice to share the video with you, because it's quite apt that there is some footage of our England team, the fact that there is the Euros at the moment.
Raheem, but this time he would have been about 8 years old, and he was playing against guys that were 10, 11, possibly 12, absolutely running rings around them. In sports in general, I think helps everybody with their confidence, it helps them with their well-being, it helps them with their mind, body and soul, it helps them socialise, and it helps them to actually study, I think. You can see Wembley Stadium right there in the background. So when Raheem was younger, growing up, he would pass that on his way to school, and he would pass it on his way home every single day. He was so ambitious to go and play somewhere like that. When he scored that goal the other day, I mean, that just made me feel so proud.
Okay, so hopefully for those of you that are primary school teachers, PE leads, hopefully that's been some news. If you hadn't already heard, that you'd welcome. My session's now concluded. If you've got any questions regarding anything that I've said, please put it in the chat, and I'm more than happy to answer anything at the end. I'm now going to be passing you over to Tamsin. Over to you.
Right, lovely, thanks very much. And in our house, we have a very active Scotland supporters tomorrow night, so it's going to be quite interesting. Hi everybody, great to be here. My name's Tamsin Computer. I'm one of the locality leads, and I look after East Lindsey, part of the education team for Lincolnshire County Council. Thank you, next slide. Apologies about the amount of acronyms, I'll just try and explain what they are. So the PE Clark document from Lincolnshire County Council, that's the top row, was actually born out of something that we did back in 2018 to reflect the changes in the way that the curriculum was supporting primary schools within the inspection framework. And that was called Lincolnshire's Approach to Reviewing the Curriculum. That became Clark at the beginning of COVID. So we just added COVID on the beginning. And now we've got the PE version of that, which we've also produced during last year, during lockdown. And basically, it's a review tool for schools to be able to review their curriculum and see that it's still fit for purpose in the way that you want it to be, particularly after the last 18 months, 18 months that we've had. We've learned some really swift lessons through that period, I think, around children's health and well-being. And I know it's a huge priority for every school that I visit at the moment. It's one of the major drivers for the way that they've welcomed children back into schools. So when I talk about curriculum, I'm talking about the totality of pupil experience in your school. And that now, of course, includes the wonderful platform of remote learning, or the blended approach that you've developed over the last period. Schools have had to devise an offer to cope with all eventualities. We've had some children in school, some children out of school, some children exiting school. And really the response and the speed and efficiency at which the education, the whole population really have responded to the challenge has been absolutely phenomenal. Since 2018, most schools have had to publish a curriculum intent statement online, and that's often linked to a school's vision and values statement. And so really what we're saying is now is a really opportune moment to review that curriculum offer and that curriculum intent. And the question I suppose to ask is your PE curriculum achieving what you want it to achieve? And is it robust enough for this post-COVID space that we now find ourselves in? It might be that there's a bit of tweaking to be done. It's a great opportunity to review what's got relevance and check that the design enables pupils to gain knowledge, understanding, skills and experience across the whole range of physical education. There's some great resources on the Association for Physical Education website. There's lots of resources on there to help you with those kinds of curriculum plans. Next slide, please. So the audit tool is in 3 sections. The 3 sections are numbered there. It's in a sort of the format of a questionnaire, if you like. That's a good idea to think about doing the RAG system for that. And the first area, it will ask questions around considering the current quality of physical education in your school. The second area, this was written last year, apologies, so it's moved on a little bit, but shaping the phased recovery stage, and then moving on to the leadership and governance of PE. And I noticed that we do have a couple of governors on the list as well. So thanks very much for your support of PE in schools and schools in general. It's a self-evaluation and where evidence can be referenced. Now, it might be that some of you, perhaps particularly if you're in a secondary phase, may well be used to doing, oh, sorry, I think the slide's gone on one too many, sorry. It might be that you're used to doing a contribution towards the whole school SEF at the end of each year. So this kind of a tool hopefully would help you to do something like that. But if you're in a primary sector or in the voluntary sector, then it still poses the kinds of questions that would be really useful for you to be able to just think through as far as your curriculum PE offer. The 3 I's at the top, we can't get away from the 3 I's in the inspection framework. The 3 I's are listed quite clearly within the quality of education judgment. It talks about intent, it talks about implementation, and it talks about impact. And so, for example, the kinds of questions that would help you to be able to evaluate those areas within your provision. Under intent, it might be that you want to have a think about a question, for example, how does the curriculum intent and design reflect the ambition to ensure that all groups of pupils, especially those who or have been disadvantaged by COVID-19 or those with SEND, make gains in knowledge and skills. And I think probably thinking about some of those statistics that we've just looked at, some of those key groups are the kinds of groups that we would really want to know that we are providing the best possible offer for, particularly at the moment. As far as implementation, as far as everything up to the point of teaching is intent, and then the actual teaching element for implementation, an example audit question prompt might be, are staff and governors engaged with the PE plan and the use of the PE premium and where that actually is targeting? And great news about the extension to the funding, completely agree. It would be so great if we had something, a longer term plan really, so schools can really plan, you know, particularly through this next 2 academic years, the kinds of, you know, exciting recovery that does need to take place. And there are loads of resources, of course, that exist now that didn't exist before COVID even. It might be that you've been using some of the resources available on Oak Academy, and although they were a bit slow to put up some of the lessons on there, and there aren't any for foundation stage or key stage 4, I have to add, some of the lessons that are on there are really, really good quality. And I know that some schools have worked really creatively to try and make those really meaningful for their students. For example, they've embedded little videos of their known PE teachers who are introducing some of the activities on some of those Oak Academy lessons. The third I is around impact. And again, this element of the 3 I's is covered within the audit tool as well. And an example area for an impact question may well be, is your plan comprehensive and robust? Does it contain clear priorities, milestones and actions? And that might be something that you want to think about, particularly in consideration with reaching some of those milestones. I shouldn't really be very competitive about this, although I'm quite a competitive sport person, but I did do that when I saw East Lindsey was leading the data statistics for Lincolnshire on the RAG rating bit. So good, well done East Lindsey, that's fantastic. Could you have the last slide, thank you. So a couple of things just to sort of flag up for you. Watch out, coming up, we've probably quite soon, hopefully, got the report that's going to be published by Ofsted. They're currently publishing some curriculum research reviews. They've done 4 already, RE Science, Languages and Mathematics, and PE is on the cards, I've been told. They've partnered with the Education Endowment Fund and other agencies to do that. They're all research based, and I would think that the PE document probably will reference some of those national data research statistics we've already looked at. I was quite disappointed to see that the last national DFE report that I could find when I was researching to do this presentation was actually beyond 2012, Outstanding Physical Education for All. And it was a survey report that was done back then. So there's a much needed, I would say, national, research paper, and perhaps that might hopefully be the one that they've promised is coming. Some great things have come out of this COVID period. I am an eternal optimist. Love him or loathe him, probably one of the richest people in the world now, Joe Wicks. He's definitely had a really positive impact on the children, getting them up and moving every day up and down the country. Many children on return to school have requested that same kind of daily experience. There are many more schools that are engaged now in the Daily Mile. And I think the positive of that actually that entitlement and engagement, children really do see as part of their everyday activity, and whereas perhaps they didn't do that before COVID. As I say, there's the Oak Academy lessons and the resources that are available for you to be able to use as part of your blended offer. Moving forward, that probably is going to now remain as part of a school offer overall. And that they are also some great things on the AFPE website to do with the hashtag This Is PE short films. There's some really great resources. Even down to my personal favourite, Get Buzzing with Bez from the Happy Mondays. So there have been some great things that have come out of this period, hopefully, for all of our benefits, actually. And so the question that I really want to finish with is, could our experience throughout COVID enable us to be able to achieve a wider, more meaningful benefit for all of us and all of our pupils in physical education? And it's been able to do that in a far more rapid way, perhaps, than any COVID-free initiative might have been able to do. So now is the time, I think, seize the opportunity. And I found the quote from Mr. McCorkadale, who I think probably speaks for every PE teacher in the country. So thank you very much. That's our the embedded little PDF there is the audit tool, should you wish to use it. And you can always get in contact with any of our team if you'd like any more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamsin. And just going to move straight on to Rebecca Darcy.
Thanks, Naz, and thanks for having me this afternoon. Obviously, I'm a member of One Network along with the other speakers this afternoon. Naz, if you want to go straight to the next slide. these are all links, so it's a little bit of a boring slide to share, but they're all really useful links that I think as school leaders and practitioners that you can take use of. The first one is around the Active Recovery Hub, which is a new resource. It's housed on through the Youth Sport Trust website, but it's got content from across the sector. So it's got AFP on there, which is the Association with PE. It's got resources from Sport England, national governing bodies, Change for Life. There's a whole host of resources on there, and I really would urge you to go and have a look at that. It's got a really useful tool where you can select your age range of pupils, so primary, secondary, etc. And then you can also select almost whether you want curriculum, after school stuff. There's parents section on there. There's literally over 350 resources to help children and young people boost their health and well-being following COVID. So, you know, as Tamsin said, COVID has probably given us the most access ever to kind of resources and support out there. So that's that first one that I wanted to flag for you. The second one is Well Schools. This is an initiative from the Youth Sport Trust. It's powered by the Bupa Foundation. It's around building schools and as education establishments by placing well-being at the heart of the school. So really looking at what underpins that. There's 3 pillars within that, being well-led, which is the staff and head teacher looking at the well-being and actively supporting and championing that, making sure that the school and the staff within it are well supported through well-being and that of the wider school community. The second one is well prepared, which is ensuring that every child has the foundation of physical and emotional literacy that will prepare them to be effective learners and to cope with the pressures of life, which I think, again, through COVID have almost been magnified. And then well equipped, this is around every child being equipped with the human skills through a bright and varied curriculum and enrichment program that develops their social capital and enables them to thrive in a modern world. So Well Schools is a resource that you can go on. It's a web-based resource. What it doesn't do, it's not a kite mark, it's not, you know, an assembly that you stand up and present. It's almost a platform where you can go and share kind of experiences and get knowledge and support from an online community. And there's a whole host of resources on there as well. But that's the ethos behind the Well Schools. And as I say, it's led by the YST, but powered through the Bupa Foundation, so that there's the real clear element around well-being in there. The third one is a family hub, which again is on YST website. It's a whole series of resources and access to sign up to a newsletter for parents. So it's very much about keeping the good work that happens within school, keeping that happening, you know, in the home, which I know a lot of places through the likes of Joe Wicks did really well throughout any lockdowns. But as we're approaching rapidly, it seems, the summer holidays, it's a really key resource perhaps for you to share as schools with parents to try and encourage them to be not only active, you know, for their young people, but active as a family, because we need the parental role modeling to make sure that families are active. And again, you know, it's free to access on there, all around physical, social and emotional well-being. And then the final resources to pinpoint you to is about National School Sport Week, which is coming up on the 19th to the 25th of June. It's a yearly campaign that happens, and obviously it's quite often when lots of schools run sports days or, you know, Healthy Schools Week or Walk to School Week. But there's all manner of resources on there for schools, families and communities. You'll see it's branded again, that together again, because last year we did National School Sports Week at home. So now it's obviously the focus on everybody being back together again, but there are distinct resources for both schools and for family and home learning. So that's a whistle-stop tour of resources that are available for you. But as I say, now is probably the best time that we've ever had to access a wealth of resources that are out there. And I think that has been magnified through COVID. I'm happy I'll pop my email in the chat if anybody wants to follow up with any of those resources or pursue anything any further. Thanks, Naz.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that has presented, as well as everyone that's attended today. You were pleased to know that's it in terms of us going through lots of PowerPoint and presenting to you. So we're going to have the last 10 minutes of questions, which Jess, the colleague that introduced the session, will lead on and make sure she picks up anything from there. But before I stop sharing the screen so you can actually see all of us a bit better, just to let you know, on the end of this presentation, we have put what we mentioned, which is a link to the resource and information on the Active Lincolnshire website. But a lot of the links for Youth Sport Trust and other partners can be found on there as well. So please do use that as a resource, and Rebecca will make sure that we have got all of those that you've listed there on that as well. And then that's the email as well that you can see on screen. So it will be on the presentation for you. That email is managed by Active Lincolnshire staff, but it is an email for the One Network. So if you have any questions or you missed anyone's name, contact or information, come through to there and we'll ensure to connect you to the right people on their behalf. So again, thank you from me, and I'm going to stop sharing screen and then hand over to Jess for any questions.
Naz, and yeah, thank you very much to all the presenters this afternoon. Haven't actually got any questions that have come through the chat box, so if anybody would like to unmute themselves and ask any of the presenters any questions, please go ahead. Nobody wants.
It's the silence. It's because everyone wants an extra 10 minutes back from the Zoom calls in a day.
Well, if there are no questions, please feel free to digest what you've been presented with today. I know there's a lot of content, but the slides will be available following this presentation. The recording, unfortunately, we did just miss the very beginning of it, I believe, but the recording will be. The link will be circulated to you by myself, and it will also be available on the Active Lincolnshire website as well. So if nobody has any questions, we will say thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.